Nestled in the Peruvian Andes, the quaint town of Yungay sat peacefully in the Huaraz River Valley, surrounded by towering peaks. But in 1970, a powerful earthquake shook those mountains, triggering a massive landslide that buried the city and nearly all its inhabitants. These stories are from eyewitness accounts of that fateful day.
I was in Huaraz with my mother and two nieces. At 2 p.m., I ran into my brother Alberto and his wife in Caraz. They suggested lunch. Almost to my own surprise, I refused the invitation. Overcome by a strange nervousness, I drove my mother and nieces to Yungay, where we arrived at 2:30. We headed to a restaurant in the heart of the old town, where we found many friends eating and discussing the World Cup soccer matches. I don't know why, but we ate much faster than usual. At 3:05 in Yungay's lovely plaza, I greeted Dr. Mateo Casaverde, the technical director of the Instituto Geofísico del Peru. He had come to install geophysical stations in the Callejón de Huaraz and was accompanied by a French geophysicist. I decided to leave for Huaraz immediately. Some nervous impatience made me refuse my mother's request to buy some of Yungay's famous bread and visit a relative she hadn't seen in years. "We can get the same bread in Huaraz," I told her, "and we'll visit another day." At 3:18, we passed through Ranrahirca, already devastated once by the 1962 avalanche. We reached Mancos at the foot of Huascarán. I drove quickly along the new road, passing Tingua and Pampac. At 3:23, we crossed the Buin Bridge over the river descending from Quebrada Ulta. "Look, Benjamin," my mother said. "See those clouds of dust all over the mountains, especially on the talus slopes." "At this time of year, they're common enough," I replied. "The wind is strong and there are little whirlwinds up and down the Santa Valley." As we reached the village of Toma, an adobe brick fell from a house, nearly hitting us. More bricks tumbled and layers of whitewash peeled from the walls. An earthquake. We needed open ground. I tried to navigate through fear-crazed people running in every direction. The earth heaved so violently that I could no longer steer. I stopped the car in an open space. Behind us, houses collapsed, nearly blocking the road. Then came a terrifying roar. First, like the flash flood that had torn through Huaraz in 1941, killing 6,000 people, including 20 of my relatives. Then it sounded like a battalion of heavy tanks or a stampede of elephants. The noise was deafening. Thousands of tons of rock and ice tumbled down the slopes of Huascarán, feeding the avalanche. The sky darkened as dust filled the air, making it nearly impossible to breathe. At 3:40, we tried to drive toward Huaraz, but found the road completely blocked by the ruins of Carhuaz. We turned back toward Yungay. In Toma, where the quake had caught us, we feverishly cleared a path, helped by terrified people acting like automatons. I was anxious as we crossed shaky bridges and roads that had split apart. By 5 p.m., we reached Mancos, eerily deserted. Everyone had fled to the hills. I drove recklessly toward Ranrahirca at 45 miles per hour whenever visibility allowed, though the thick dust limited our sight to about 100 feet. Brakes screeched as I came to an abrupt stop. A black gooey mass, 15 feet high, blocked the road. It was all that remained of Ranrahirca, swallowed by an avalanche once again. Trembling, I stepped out of the car and saw the horrifying debris, shattered houses, uprooted trees, ice, and human remains. There was nothing left to do but return toward Carhuaz, but I couldn't shake the weight on my conscience. I bore a grave responsibility. The safety of the Santa Valley's villages rested on my shoulders. As the regional glaciologist, I knew the danger wasn't over. Dozens of hanging glaciers and 265 glacial lakes, possibly weakened by the earthquake, threatened to break loose. We stopped at Pati, just outside Carhuaz. That night was the longest and most horrific of our lives. Tremors continued, 64 strong aftershocks in total.